What if I told you that some of Hollywood's most beloved stars were completely unrecognizable before they hit the big screen? We're talking total physical makeovers that would make today's reality TV shows look amateur, from extreme weight loss that nearly killed them to surgical procedures that literally rebuilt their faces. These golden age transformations were so dramatic, they created entirely new people. Get ready for the most jaw-dropping before and after stories in cinema history. Number 15. Lana Turner. Before Lana Turner became the sultry blonde bombshell who defined 1940s glamour, she was Julia Jean Turner, a brunette teenager working at a soda fountain in Hollywood. The transformation MGM put her through was nothing short of miraculous. They bleached her dark brown hair to platinum blonde, taught her to walk differently, changed her entire speaking voice, and put her through rigorous acting classes that lasted 18 months. The studio even changed her eating habits completely. Turner was naturally curvy, but MGM wanted that hourglass figure to be more pronounced. They put her on a strict diet that included protein shakes for breakfast and measured portions for every meal. A nutritionist was assigned to monitor her weight daily. The result was a 25-pound weight loss that transformed her from a pretty teenager into a screen siren. What makes Turner's transformation even more remarkable is how quickly it happened. Within 2 years of being discovered at that soda fountain, she was starring opposite Clark Gable in major productions. The studio's investment paid off massively when her 1946 film, The Postman Always Rings Twice, became a huge hit, largely due to her new look. Critics at the time called her transformation the most successful makeover in Hollywood history. Director Mervyn LeRoy, who discovered her, later admitted that the original Lana Turner was sweet but forgettable. The new version became one of the highest-paid actresses of her era, proving that sometimes a complete reinvention can change everything. Number 14. Marlon Brando. Everyone knows Marlon Brando revolutionized acting, but few realize he also underwent a complete physical transformation that shocked Hollywood. When he arrived in the late 1940s, Brando was actually quite thin and scholarly looking. The rugged, muscular Brando we remember was carefully crafted through an intense physical training regimen that changed how leading men looked forever. Brando worked with a personal trainer for 6 months before filming A Streetcar Named Desire. He gained 30 pounds of pure muscle, developed his famous broad shoulders, and learned to move with that distinctive swagger that became his trademark. The transformation wasn't just physical, though. He changed his entire speaking pattern, dropping his voice an octave and developing that mumbling delivery that became iconic. The results were immediate and explosive. When Streetcar hit theaters in 1951, women literally fainted during his scenes. The combination of his new physique and raw acting style created something Hollywood had never seen before. Theater owners reported that they had to increase security because female fans were becoming too aggressive. What's really wild is that Brando initially resisted the physical transformation. He thought it was superficial and went against his method acting principles. But director Elia Kazan convinced him that the character of Stanley Kowalski needed that animalistic physicality. The transformation worked so well that it became the template for every leading man who followed. James Dean, Paul Newman, and countless others copied Brando's combination of muscles and method acting. Number 13. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth's transformation remains one of Hollywood's most disturbing examples of ethnic erasure disguised as star-making. Born Margarita Carmen Cancino, she was a talented dancer with Spanish heritage who looked distinctly Latina. Columbia Pictures saw potential, but demanded she become more American to be a leading lady. The transformation was brutal and painful. Hayworth underwent electrolysis treatments for over a year to raise her hairline by more than an inch, making her forehead appear larger and more Anglo. Each session was agony, as technicians used electrical currents to kill hair follicles one by one. She also had to dye her naturally black hair auburn and learn to speak with a completely different accent. The studio changed everything about her identity. They shortened her father's surname from Cancino to Casino, then changed it entirely to Hayworth, her mother's maiden name. They taught her new mannerisms, changed her wardrobe style, and even had her practice different facial expressions in mirrors for hours each day. The results were undeniably successful from a career standpoint. Hayworth became one of the biggest stars of the 1940s, with her image on World War II bombers and millions of pinup photos. But the psychological cost was enormous. She later said she spent her whole life trying to figure out who she really was underneath all the studio-created personas. Critics today recognize Hayworth's transformation as a perfect example of Hollywood's racist beauty standards. The fact that she had to literally erase her heritage to become a star shows how limited opportunities were for non-white performers during the Golden Age. Number 12. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney's transformation from child performer to adult leading man was one of Hollywood's most challenging reinventions. As a teenager, he was short, baby-faced, and known for playing Andy Hardy in wholesome family films. MGM knew they had to completely reimagine him for adult roles or risk losing their investment. The studio put Rooney through what they called maturity training. This included intensive voice coaching to deepen his tone, physical training to build muscle mass, and even posture classes to make him appear taller. They changed his hairstyle, updated his wardrobe, and taught him to carry himself differently on camera. The most dramatic change was psychological. Rooney had to learn to project adult confidence instead of boyish charm. Acting coaches worked with him for months to develop a more mature screen presence. The studio also carefully selected his first adult roles to showcase this new persona. The transformation worked, but it took years to convince audiences. His 1943 film, The Human Comedy, marked the official debut of adult Mickey Rooney, and critics were initially skeptical. Variety wrote that he seemed to be trying too hard to grow up. But by the late 1940s, the transformation was complete, and he was successfully taking on dramatic roles. What made Rooney's case unique was that he did it while remaining at the same studio. Most actors had to switch studios to reinvent themselves, but MGM managed to transform their biggest child star into a credible adult performer while keeping him under contract. Number 11. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor's transformation from precocious child actress to voluptuous screen goddess happened gradually, but the changes were so dramatic that by the 1950s, she looked like a completely different person. MGM carefully managed her evolution from National Velvet's tomboyish Ryder to Kat on a Hot Tin Roof's sultry Maggie. The physical changes were the most obvious. Taylor naturally developed curves, but the studio enhanced and highlighted every change. They updated her makeup to emphasize her famous violet eyes, changed her hairstyles to frame her face differently, and selected costumes that showcased her maturing figure. Personal trainers helped her maintain the perfect proportions that became her trademark. But the real transformation was in her screen presence. Child Elizabeth was sweet and innocent. Adult Elizabeth radiated sensuality and intelligence. The studio worked with acting coaches to help her develop this new persona. She learned to use her voice differently, to move with more confidence, and to project the kind of magnetism that made her one of the biggest stars in the world. The results were spectacular. By 1956, she was earning more per film than almost any other actress in Hollywood. Her transformation from child to woman happened on screen, and audiences felt like they were watching someone they'd known since childhood become a movie star before their eyes. Critics praised her evolution, with many noting that few child stars successfully made the transition to adult roles. Taylor's transformation became the gold standard for how to grow up in Hollywood while maintaining audience loyalty and box office appeal. Number 10. Cary Grant. Cary Grant's transformation from Archie Leach, a working-class British acrobat, to Hollywood's most sophisticated leading man was so complete that he essentially created a new identity. The change involved everything from his accent to his posture to his entire worldview. Grant worked with dialect coaches for years to develop his famous mid-Atlantic accent. He studied how upper-class Americans spoke, moved, and behaved. He learned about fine dining, expensive clothes, and high society mannerisms. The studio also sent him to charm school, where he learned proper etiquette and social graces. The physical transformation was equally dramatic. Grant was naturally athletic from his acrobatic background, but he refined his physique for the screen. He learned to carry himself with elegance, rather than the rough energy of a performer. His signature style of dress became part of his screen persona. What's remarkable is how thoroughly Grant inhabited this new identity. He didn't just play sophisticated characters, he became one. Off-screen, he maintained the same elegant demeanor that he projected on film. Many of his friends said that Archie Leach disappeared completely, replaced by the suave persona he created. The transformation made him one of Hollywood's biggest stars for over 3 decades. Films like North by Northwest and Charade showcased his perfected persona. Critics often noted that Grant had achieved something rare in Hollywood, creating a screen personality so compelling that it overshadowed his real identity. Number 9. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford didn't just transform once. She reinvented herself multiple times throughout her career, each change more dramatic than the last. Starting as Lucille Lesieur, a dancer from Texas, she became one of Hollywood's greatest shapeshifters. Her first transformation was from flapper to dramatic actress in the late 1920s. MGM changed her name through a fan contest, updated her look, and put her through intensive acting training. She learned to project intensity and drama instead of the carefree energy of her dancing days. The second major transformation came in the 1940s when her career stalled. Crawford left MGM for Warner Brothers and completely reimagined herself as a mature, dramatic actress. She lost weight, changed her makeup style, and took on grittier roles. The result was her Oscar-winning performance in Mildred Pierce. Her third transformation was perhaps the most shocking. In the 1960s, as aging Hollywood royalty, Crawford reinvented herself as a horror movie queen in films like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? She embraced gothic makeup, dramatic lighting, and campy performances that were completely different from her earlier sophisticated image. Each transformation required Crawford to essentially become a different person. She changed her voice, her mannerisms, her entire screen presence. Critics marveled at her ability to remain relevant through multiple decades by constantly evolving her persona. What made Crawford's transformation so successful was her willingness to completely abandon previous versions of herself. While many stars clung to their established images, Crawford embraced change and used it to extend her career far beyond what anyone thought possible. Number 8. Clark Gable. Clark Gable's transformation from a struggling extra with bad teeth to the king of Hollywood involved one of the most complete physical and persona makeovers in movie history. When he arrived in Hollywood, Gable was just another handsome guy with big ears and dental problems. MGM turned him into the epitome of masculine charm. The first step was dental work. Gable's teeth were so bad that he needed complete dentures, which were revolutionary for the time. The studio spared no expense, creating the perfect smile that would become one of his trademarks. They also worked on minimizing his prominent ears through careful camera angles and hairstyling. The persona transformation was equally important. Gable was naturally shy and insecure, but the studio taught him to project confidence and roguish charm. He worked with acting coaches to develop his famous grin and that slightly mocking tone that made women swoon. Voice coaches helped him develop the perfect timbre for romantic scenes. The results were immediate and spectacular. By 1932, just 2 years after his makeover, Gable was starring opposite major actresses like Joan Crawford and Greta Garbo. His breakthrough role in It Happened One Night proved that the transformation was complete, and he became the template for leading men for decades. What's amazing is how completely Gable inhabited his new persona. The confident, charming man on screen became his real personality. Friends said the transformation was so thorough that the original insecure Clark disappeared entirely, replaced by the king of Hollywood who ruled Tinseltown for over 2 decades. Number 7. Judy Garland. Judy Garland's transformation from Frances Gumm to Dorothy is one of Hollywood's most tragic reinventions. MGM didn't just change her appearance, they chemically altered her entire metabolism and personality through a systematic program of drugs that turned a naturally plump teenager into their idea of a star. The studio put Garland on amphetamines to keep her thin and energetic during 18-hour workdays. At night, they gave her sleeping pills to counteract the uppers. This cycle continued for years, fundamentally changing her body chemistry and natural rhythms. The weight loss was dramatic and immediate, transforming her from a chubby child performer to the slender Dorothy. But the transformation went beyond weight. The drugs changed Garland's entire personality. She became more anxious, more emotional, and more dependent on studio control. What started as a simple makeover became a complete psychological restructuring that would haunt her for life. The results made her one of the biggest stars in the world. The Wizard of Oz showcased the completed transformation, and audiences fell in love with the new Judy Garland. Her rendition of Over the Rainbow became iconic, but few knew the chemical cost of creating that performance. Critics later recognized Garland's transformation as one of Hollywood's most abusive star-making processes. The studio essentially sacrificed her health and happiness to create a profitable image. The drugs that made her thin and energetic eventually contributed to her early death at 47. The tragedy is that Garland was already talented before the transformation. The studio's intervention created a star, but destroyed the person, making her one of the most cautionary tales in Hollywood history. Number 6. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe's transformation from Norma Jean Baker represents the most complete star makeover in Hollywood history. Every aspect of her appearance, voice, and personality was carefully crafted to create the ultimate fantasy woman. The physical changes were extensive. Monroe's naturally brown hair was bleached to platinum blonde and styled in soft waves. She underwent cosmetic procedures, including a chin implant and nose job that refined her features. The studio also taught her to walk differently, creating that famous hip-swaying gait that became her signature. But the real transformation was psychological. Norma Jean was reportedly quiet and bookish, while Marilyn was breathy, flirtatious, and seemingly naive. Monroe worked with acting coaches to develop the famous whisper voice and wide-eyed expression that made her a global icon. The persona was so complete that Monroe herself sometimes struggled to separate it from her real identity. Friends reported that she would slip in and out of the Marilyn character, sometimes mid-conversation. The transformation was so thorough that the original Norma Jean seemed to disappear entirely. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Monroe became the most famous woman in the world, her image selling everything from movies to calendars. Her transformation created a new template for feminine beauty that influenced generations of performers. Critics today recognize Monroe's makeover as both a triumph of Hollywood marketing and a tragedy of lost identity. The studio created the perfect fantasy woman, but potentially destroyed the real person underneath. Her transformation remains the ultimate example of how completely Hollywood could reinvent someone for stardom. Number 5. Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson's transformation involved one of Hollywood's most elaborate cover-ups. The studio didn't just change his appearance, they created an entirely false identity to hide his homosexuality and make him America's ideal leading man. The physical transformation was relatively simple. Hudson was already tall and handsome, but the studio refined his look with better grooming, updated wardrobe, and acting lessons to project masculine confidence. They taught him to lower his voice and move with more authority. The real transformation was creating a fake heterosexual persona. The studio arranged dates with starlets, planted romantic stories in gossip columns, and eventually pressured him into a marriage with his agent's secretary. They created an elaborate fiction about his love life that lasted for decades. Hudson had to essentially live two lives, one as the romantic leading man the public knew, and another as the gay man he actually was. The psychological toll was enormous, but the professional results were undeniable. He became one of Hollywood's biggest stars throughout the 1950s and 1960s. The transformation was so successful that even when Hudson died of AIDS-related complications in 1985, many fans refused to believe he was gay. The studio-created heterosexual image was more convincing than reality. Critics now view Hudson's transformation as a perfect example of how the studio system forced LGBTQ performers to hide their identities. His case highlighted the cruel choice between authenticity and career success that many actors faced during Hollywood's golden age. Number 4. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo's transformation from Swedish country girl to mysterious international star was one of Hollywood's most successful reinventions. MGM took a plump, cheerful actress and created the enigmatic goddess who defined sophisticated European glamour. The physical changes were dramatic. Garbo lost significant weight under studio supervision, developing the gaunt, angular features that became her trademark. They updated her makeup to emphasize her high cheekbones and deep-set eyes. Her hair was restyled, and she learned to carry herself with a regal bearing that made her seem otherworldly. But the real transformation was creating her mysterious persona. The naturally friendly Garbo learned to be distant and aloof in public. The studio coached her to speak in cryptic phrases and avoid personal questions. They created the "I want to be alone" image that made her seem like a fascinating enigma. The results were extraordinary. Garbo became one of the highest paid stars in Hollywood, commanding unprecedented salaries. Her mysterious image made every public appearance an event, and her films drew huge audiences curious about the real woman behind the persona. What made Garbo's transformation unique was how completely she maintained it throughout her career. Unlike other stars who occasionally broke character, Garbo never let the public see behind her mysterious facade. The transformation was so thorough that even decades after her retirement, the real Greta Garbo remained a mystery. Critics praised her ability to embody sophistication and mystery simultaneously. Her transformation created a new type of movie star, one who was more fascinating for what she didn't reveal than for what she did. Number 3. John Wayne. John Wayne's transformation from Marion Morrison, a USC football player working as a prop man, to the Duke, America's cowboy icon, was one of Hollywood's most successful masculinity makeovers. The change involved everything from his name, to his walk, to his entire worldview. The physical transformation started with his posture and movement. Wayne naturally walked normally, but director John Ford taught him the distinctive swagger that became his trademark. He learned to move more slowly and deliberately, projecting strength and confidence. His voice was trained to be deeper and more measured. The studio also crafted his entire image around American values and frontier masculinity. Wayne learned to embody the strong, silent type who could handle any situation. This persona was so convincing that many people assumed he was actually a cowboy before becoming an actor. The results made Wayne one of the biggest box office draws for over 4 decades. His transformation was so complete that he became synonymous with American masculinity itself. Politicians sought his endorsement, and his image was used to represent American values worldwide. What's remarkable is how Wayne's manufactured persona influenced real American culture. His version of masculinity became the template for how men thought they should behave. The transformation didn't just create a movie star, it helped define an entire cultural ideal. Critics noted that Wayne's transformation was so successful because it seemed authentic. Unlike other manufactured personas that felt artificial, Wayne's cowboy image felt real to audiences, even though it was entirely created by Hollywood studios. Number 2. Rudolph Valentino. Rudolph Valentino's transformation from Rodolfo Guglielmi, an Italian immigrant who worked as a taxi dancer and gigolo, to the great lover of silent films, represents one of cinema's most exotic reinventions. Hollywood took a struggling foreigner and created the template for the romantic leading man. The physical transformation emphasized Valentino's foreign appeal. Studios enhanced his dark Mediterranean features with dramatic makeup and lighting. They styled his hair with pomade to create that slicked-back look that became iconic. His wardrobe emphasized exotic costumes that made him seem mysterious and worldly. The persona transformation was equally important. Valentino learned to project smoldering intensity and romantic passion. He developed the famous snake eyes stare that made women faint in theaters. Directors taught him to move with predatory grace like a jungle cat stalking his prey. The results were unprecedented. Valentino became the first true international heartthrob, causing riots wherever he appeared. Women threw themselves at the screen during his movies, and his funeral drew over 100,000 mourners. His transformation created the romantic leading man archetype that influenced Hollywood for decades. What made Valentino's transformation tragic was how quickly it ended. He died at 31, just 5 years after becoming a star. But those 5 years changed cinema forever, proving that the right transformation could create a cultural phenomenon. Critics recognized that Valentino's exotic appeal filled a gap in American cinema. His foreign mystique offered something different from typical American leading men, creating a new category of romantic star that studios tried to replicate for generations. Number 1. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin's transformation from Charles Spencer Chaplin, a struggling British music hall performer, to the Little Tramp character who became cinema's first global icon, represents the most influential makeover in movie history. This wasn't just a physical change, it was the creation of an entirely new art form. The transformation happened almost by accident when Chaplin was asked to create a character for his second film. He assembled the tramp costume from random pieces borrowed backstage, but the result was pure genius. The too small coat, oversized pants, and tiny bowler hat created a figure that was both pathetic and dignified. But the real transformation was in how Chaplin inhabited this character. He developed the tramp's distinctive walk, gestures, and facial expressions that communicated across language barriers. The character became a universal symbol of the underdog struggling against an uncaring world. The results changed entertainment forever. Chaplin became the most famous person on Earth, recognized instantly by his silhouette alone. The tramp character influenced comedy, fashion, and popular culture worldwide. Nations stopped wars to watch Chaplin films. What made this transformation revolutionary was how it elevated cinema from simple entertainment to high art. Chaplin proved that movies could be meaningful, emotional, and important. His transformation didn't just create a character, it legitimized an entire medium. Critics still consider Chaplin's creation of the Tramp to be cinema's greatest single achievement. The transformation took a nobody and created not just a star, but an art form that changed human culture forever. Which transformation shocked you the most? Looking at these incredible makeovers, it's clear that Golden Age Hollywood was basically running the world's first and most successful witness protection program, except instead of hiding criminals, they were creating gods and goddesses out of regular people. But here's the real question that nobody wants to ask. Were these transformations empowering reinventions that gave people new lives and incredible careers? Or were they cruel erasures of authentic identities in service of an impossible beauty standard? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this debate is far from over.